This is called The Needy Beggar by Mary Song. Once upon a time, a needy beggar stood on the side of the road. The needy beggar held a sign that said, "Please love me." And another sign that said, "Honk, if you approve of me." The needy beggar for donations of approval. The sun was hot, the air was dry, the cup was empty, the needy beggar stood still. Cars drove by. 4 bicycles built for 2 sped by with people laughing. A bus full of Christian kids rumbled by. A funeral procession almost honked. The needy beggar held the signs higher and expressed need through a sad-eyed face. More cars, a prison van full of prisoners, someone waved. A tour bus of sightseers. Finally, I drove by. I saw the needy beggar on the side of the road and I said, "Hey, you look like me. Why are you standing out here on the road?" I stopped my brand new, sleek, radiant lime green Lamborghini and got out. I stood face to face with the needy beggar and I said, "What the heck is going on here?" The needy beggar only said 3 things. "Please love me," and "Please approve of me," and "If you don't mind, would you please applaud my existence?" "Wait here," I said. And I went back to my gorgeous, shiny car that showed how sexy I really was. And I got out my fancy, dancy camera. Whoo, baby. Makes me look like a real photographer when actually the camera does all the work. Page 2. And I said to the needy beggar, "Hey, let me do some portraits of you. And that will make you feel special. You'll feel loved. And you'll feel like you deserve applause once I take these portraits of you." I took 68 photos. During that time, I saw 4 bicycles built for 2 gliding by in the opposite direction with nobody laughing. Also, a bus full of sleeping Christian kids, a tired funeral procession which almost honked, a lively prison van from which someone waved, and a tour bus of sleeping sightseers. Then the needy beggar and I sat down on the side of the road and looked at the pictures in my camera. I only saw pictures of myself there. The needy beggar said, "Please love me." And I said, "Wow, I can't believe it. I took all these pictures of you and you turned out to be me." With that, the needy beggar on the side of the road sweetly dissipated into the dry air, making it moist and lovely. I breathed in the air, and I looked at my flashy car, my beautiful Lamborghini, and I thought it looked ridiculous. I sold the car and gave the money to the Center for Sacred Sciences, and I have not seen the needy beggar since then. And that, my friends, is the story of the needy beggar. Thank you for applauding. Now, while I have the music still going, I want to tell you the story of Milarepa. So the music's fine, yes? Just tinkling in the background. Okay. So in Tibetan tradition, there's a Buddhist story that I heard Joel tell this many times about a great cave-dwelling monk named Milarepa that illustrates how we must first engage with the inner forces bedeviling us, like the needy beggar, before we can confront the challenges we face in life. Okay? So when Milarepa returns to his cave after a day of gathering firewood, he soon discovers his cave is infested with demons, and one of them looks just like the needy beggar. That looks like me. So he soon discovers his cave is infested with demons and he's trapped with them. At first, he tries to force them out with sheer willpower, but to no avail. The demons continue swirling around, wreaking havoc in the cave. He quickly realizes the more he chases them around, the more he tries to get rid of them, they dig in. Next, Milarepa decides to try to teach them the Dharma. But this fails because they're not interested in any of his scholarly teachings. And finally, at wit's end, Milarepa decides to let go of his resistance and open his heart and mind to curiosity. What do these demons want from me anyway? Could it be they've nothing or something to teach me or nothing to teach me? With this new mindset of compassionate curiosity, which I really like those two words together, compassionate curiosity, he offers an official invitation to the demons to come sit with him to discuss their grievances over a cup of tea. But as soon as he offers the invitation, they vanish. Just like my beggar on the side of the road vanished. Now, in another version of the story, Milarepa puts his head right into the jaws of one of the demons, surrendering to them, and then they vanish. But whatever the case, they vanished once they were accepted. The music is just right on cue, isn't it? I'll bring it up slightly. And I'll tell you that this music was composed by Mozart in 12 variations in C major on the French folk song, Ah, vous dirais-je maman, which we think of as Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. But it's actually quite different, and it's performed here by Walter Klein. Very nice for story time. So thank you for listening to my stories, and the music's coming to an end. Right there, beautiful timing. Beautiful, okay. So what is the needy beggar? I made up the term myself. I think probably in Tibetan, you can find, I don't know, there are other names for what I'm talking about here, but it just occurred to me, this needy beggar, and I'm defining it from my own experience. So I see it as a manifestation that arises from the story of I. The needy beggar would have you believe that it or you need love, approval, applause. But the nature of the needy beggar is that it isn't actually looking to be satisfied. It can never be satisfied. No matter what acceptance it gets, the needy beggar will still be begging. Why? Because it wants you to stay in the spell of the story of I, a mind spell. I'm needing, I'm on the side of the road begging. The story of I is created by your imagination and falls into the category of fiction. So the sense of self that we create from imagination is a fictional being, and it can never be satisfied because it doesn't actually exist the way it appears to us as existing. Now, freedom from the story of I means knowing the true nature of being. So I turned to Joel's book, which I recommend to everyone here, The Way of Selflessness. This is the first edition and looks different in the second edition, and by Joel. And I took an excerpt, a quote from Joel, from page 38 if you want to look it up. And Joel tells us, we translate our lived experience into an interior stream of images, ideas, memories, expectations, and judgments, which our thinking minds weave into an intricate and ongoing narrative. This is the story of I, Joel tells us, in which each of us ends up starring as a full-blown ego self, And although, like any good soap opera, the story has a host of supporting characters and shifting subplots, the dramatic tension always boils down to the same question with which the tale began: will I be able to avoid suffering and attain happiness? Whether it be in my new house, Joel says, or on my new job, or with my new lover, or with my Lamborghini, I said, or I don't really have a Lamborghini, or on my next vacation, or simply eating my next meal. Moreover, Joel says, because of all these things, houses, jobs, lovers, vacations, meals, are ephemeral, this story has no end. Ephemeral, very short-lived, like leaves on the stream, impermanent. Hour after hour, day after day, year after year, it continues to completely captivate our attention, Joel tells us, thereby keeping us perpetually distracted from and ignorant of our true nature. Thank you, Joel, for that quote. That's on page 38 of Joel's book, The Way of Selflessness. So true nature is never begging. That's not true nature on the side of the road. True nature does not need love or approval. It's kind of something to think about, huh? Because true nature is love and wholeness. And so we might imagine living life in love and wholeness. I mean, that's hard for us to imagine because we have all this arising in consciousness, distracting, and desires and grievances and so on, distracting us from that arising in consciousness. In your life past, you may have experienced rejection and suffered loss, and I'm sure, we all have. But true nature is unfazed. So with that, I want to get a little interaction from you all. I want to do some chat poetry. And so some of you have done this with me before, and I'm going to give you a lead-in line. And on your chat bar, on whatever kind of device you have, I'd like you to fill in the blank in the chat area. My needy beggar holds a sign that says, fill in the blank. Go ahead and type that in. Good. My needy beggar says, notice me. My needy beggar says, I'm here. My needy beggar says, love me, love my art. My sign, the needy beggar's holding, says, laugh with me. Keep it coming. My needy beggar says, I love you. Do you love me? Needy beggar on the side of the road, love me more. Needy beggar's sign says, don't run away. Don't laugh at me. Good. Keep it coming. Don't fear me. Good. My needy beggar says, don't fear me. Don't laugh at me. Don't run away. Listen. Listen to me. Right? Respect me. All of it. Imagine all these needy beggars with signs. We're driving down the road. Approve of me. Tell me I'm good enough. Good. See how good I am? Now you're in the flow, my friends. It's almost endless, isn't it? And it boils down to approve of me, see me, and hear me, and tell me I do a good job. Love me for who I am. Good. Good. That's great. Okay, now let's try another one. This one is a different line I'll give you. These are the things I seek approval for. Let's try a chat on that. My work, my cleverness, my uniqueness. I seek approval for everything I do. I seek approval for being able to manage all the things. I seek approval for my sourdough bread. Ooh, baby. I seek approval for my wisdom, for doing good things, for my good deeds. I seek approval for my quick wit, my intelligence. I seek approval for my thinking, my artwork, my appearance. Let me get down to the bottom here. So we have no shortage here. I seek approval for love me for who I think I am, and I seek approval for being helpful. I've done all this work. Don't you thank me for having been so helpful, and so on. Thank you for that. I think it's always, it's a good exercise. Helps bring us together too, and know that we're sharing this, right? I'm not just talking about myself. I'm talking about all of us here together. Now, I am not talking about, when I say the needy beggar, and remember I made this term up myself, and I just thought about it and created what is the needy beggar. And I do not mean Buddhist monks with begging bowls, you know. I mean, this is a spiritual practice to go, to hold the bowl out, to receive your food for the day. That's not what I mean by the needy beggar. And I'm not talking about unhoused folks, or maybe they're housed out on the street with signs seeking anything helps, donations. I'm not talking about them. And I'm not talking about isolated people who are actually cut off from sources of support and love. What I am really talking about here is me and you. It's something within our personal story that wants to be acknowledged. It's hard for us to admit sometimes because we have a lot of conditioning that, you know, we're not supposed to let people know that we actually did want to be thanked, or we wanted to receive a good word about it. So it's in our personal story to be acknowledged, to be accepted. Please accept me, you know, and tell me so. Let me know. Or applauded. Please applaud my efforts in life. Okay. So yes, it's kind of a natural thing that comes out of that story of I, keeping us in the spell of the mind. And it would be something, you know, if a round of applause would actually satisfy that. You know, wouldn't that be nice? You do get thanked and that's it. Satisfied, okay. Don't need to bring it up ever again. But have you experienced this? Yeah, Laura Betty, I see your smile there. Where, oh, well, yeah, I got that one thank you, but that wasn't enough. Now I want some more. Just like desire, when I was, you know, receiving spiritual teachings and learned about the nature of desire, well, I really finally got that. The nature of desire is to never be satisfied. I desire the Lamborghini or the new car, and I get it, and then now, a little while later, I want something else. I want something else. I want something else. And it never stops. And that's the nature of desire. Only when we let go of desire, or maybe invite desire in and it dissipates, can we be free of that constantly grasping for something else to satisfy. So to give me some more of something to make me feel okay, because somehow I don't feel okay. Why? That's the nature of the story of I. We don't feel quite okay. I need something. Something's off here. I don't feel like I belong. In fact, you know, I've taught quite a few writing workshops for the center now with themes that I've used, like I don't belong. I don't feel like I belong to whatever I do, I don't feel like I belong. And then, you know, like everybody says, yeah, me too. I don't feel like I belong. This is a very common thing. Or I want to be special, but nobody treats me as special. Or I get special for one moment and then it's gone and I want more of that. So these are themes that some of us have worked with in the writing workshops. But, you know, it keeps going, and we can assume that when we live in the story of I, that's going to continue, this arising of needing and wanting and desire and not feeling quite good enough. And I could strive harder. Maybe if I went back to graduate school or, then I'd be good enough. Get a PhD, or I'll go traveling around the world then. So on and on it goes. And as spiritual practitioners, we've learned, to sit still and watch the breath of the body, bringing the mind back to the body as something that actually is so illuminating and so precious. But I want to illustrate what I'm talking about here with the Needy Beggar. Yes, I wrote a it's a true story, not fiction. It's a true story called The Roadrunner Teaching. And I wrote it 19 years ago. Strangely enough, I have not let anybody read it. I don't know why. I mean, it's a good story. When I look back at it, it seems like a good story. And I'm not going to read it to you because it's too long. But I want to summarize it because it's such an excellent example of what I'm talking about here. The Roadrunner Teaching. This has to do with my Vipassana teacher, Ruth Dennison, who passed to the great beyond, whatever it is, in 2015. And Ruth's retreat center is called Dhammadena and is in the Mojave Desert. It is still going on, by the way, so some people have, kept it going after she passed away. So when this story takes place, I had already been a student of Ruth for more than 10 years and had been practicing Vipassana meditation, receiving Buddhist teachings, and so on. And as a labor of love and as my natural response to her, I became a documentarian for her because I had the skills. I've done radio production, film production, sound, audio, lights, camera, action kind of stuff. And I saw the beauty of the Dharma that she was presenting. It evoked from me the desire to give something in support. And so I came forward and began to do this over many, many years. And so I was always carrying around cameras and microphones and, everything, trying to get it just right. So I went to a Vipassana retreat with Ruth right after I produced my second documentary of her called You Are Free, which, by the way, is available in the center library. You Are Free. And everything there is recorded at her retreat center, Dhammadena. And over the phone, Ruth Dennison said to me that I had captured her soul in You Are Free. And the essence of her teaching had come shining through. She wanted more copies of it so that she could give them to loved ones. Now, right there was my applause, my approval, my acceptance, my thank you from the teacher. Why wasn't that enough? Why wasn't that enough? I got it. I did the work. Labor of love. She gave me the applause, the thank you, and here I am. I go to Dhammadena, and I realize I'm a needy beggar. I get there. Retreat's already in session, and Ruth is kind of cool to me. I'm just another student. She's got a whole bunch of students down there on retreat with her. I arrive, and she's, treats me like just anybody else. Okay? And it hurt. It hurt. Let me read you a quote from the story that I wrote. It hurt because I had to notice I had so much self-doubt that without public displays of approval and appreciation, I would fall into a desert of despair. Oh, the suffering. No tears, I wasn't crying, but my mind went to work piecing together a story of rejection, while it also schemed ways to try to get what it wanted, approval. So here's a scene. Ruth is on the patio of the teacher's cottage. I approach and I say, Ruth, did you like the final video edit? Didn't see it, she snaps, as if to say, don't waste my time. Now she's got a heavy German accent, or she did have a heavy German accent. You didn't see it? I say, confused. I had sent the final edit to her weeks ago. Ah, yeah. I'd like more meditation scenes. But it has 2 good meditation scenes, I said. No eating meditation, she declares, and she disappears into her cottage. So I walk slowly back to my room, chewing on these thoughts of rejection, and I can't see any of the beautiful blooming prickly pear cacti or any of the busy anthills on the way. I am so consumed with feeling unappreciated. Okay, but the lesson doesn't stop here. I kept wondering if Ruth was consciously forcing me to face my needy beggar. Did she plan this out? Or had her memory failed her because she was 80 years old then, and we had a memory happening for her. So maybe she forgot the whole thing, or maybe she didn't know who I was, or maybe, just maybe I wasn't all that special after all. I was just another student, you know. I didn't know what was going on. Was she teaching me a lesson? And yes, the suffering, but oh, the awareness, okay, the light of awareness. Although the feeling of rejection was just awful, I was shining a light of awareness. I couldn't help, I mean, you were in Vipassana meditation, the light shines, you know, it burns away at it. And so, quote number 2 from the story. Through the sliding glass door entrance, I am going into my bedroom when Ruth appears in the yard. And she's running, darting around like a child rather than an 80-year-old. She calls to me, Medisong, look, the Roadrunner. I zip back out the sliding door, joining her in the yard, seeing clearly, my mind present in the moment, as if it has dropped its heavy baggage and is now free. She takes me all around her cultivated piece of desert with yard ornaments and flowering bushes, afraid the mother roadrunner has lost her baby. And then she shows me her roadrunner feeding station in the shade of her porch and where to get the food to put on it. She directs my attention again to the mother roadrunner, the large jay-like bird with long up-thrust tail feathers. It patiently views us from a distance. Ruth obviously loves the roadrunner. Does the roadrunner need applause? And then Ruth is gone, much like a bird flying away, and I smile in gratitude. My mind had snapped into the present the instant she said, look, Medisong, the roadrunner. And it had dropped its painful story of never being appreciated enough. But the story was soon to be written in my mind again. The lesson doesn't stop there. I mean, that would be a nice finish, wouldn't it? Ah, the roadrunner teaching, it's over. But I noticed I was jealous. So there I am on retreat, and there's other people. And I'm jealous of another person there in the Sangha who's also a photographer and has a better looking camera than I've got. You know, have you ever heard of lens envy? Lens envy. And not only that, but this person has created the Ruth Denison Dhammadana calendar. And each page, pictures that she's done of Ruth and Dhammadana and the quotes of Ruth, and it's beautiful. And I'm jealous because Ruth stops the whole retreat and starts raving in approval of the calendar. and applauding, and everyone's cheering the calendar maker while I sit there pretending to, oh, good job, when inside I'm feeling, I didn't get any public recognition. The other person did. And I felt the jealousy. Ooh, it's a terrible feeling, jealousy. The pain of it all. Why hadn't Ruth publicly acknowledged me? Quote number 3. Now the bell is sounding across the windy desert, and we are moving toward the Zendo. I'm going slowly, my heavy thoughts of rejection and my painful heart causing me to drag my feet a little. And then Ruth appears in her long rose-colored skirt and scarf, her 2 little dachshunds trailing behind her. The younger dog, the brown one, Nellie, moves its short legs quickly to catch up with her. She'd bring them right into the Zendo, and they'd be laying on pillows next to her. It was so photogenic. But the other dog, the older one, the black one, Tara, is arthritic and her back legs barely bending. Pick her up, Ruth says to me. Carry her. And it's as though Ruth has picked me right up out of my mind, my jealousy. I reached down to pick up Tara, and I don't know a lot about dogs, so I was a little afraid to pick up Tara. And she is black with gray tufts and a cowlick on her forehead. And I'm afraid she won't like me and squirm away, and everyone will look and think I'm hurting Ruth's little dog. All this going through my mind. But then I noticed the warmth of her body, this little dog, and I carried this warm, breathing thing in my arms against my chest as though I were somehow carrying myself, some part of myself in need of help. Tara doesn't squirm or try to get away. She seems to rest patiently, and I set her down on the floor. I really set her down, noticing the bending of my body and the exhale of my breath. I'm with the sensation of the space left empty in my arms. And then later, I was keeping a journal throughout this entire time, noting down my discovery as I was going. And then later, I wrote in my journal, and this is in the story that I wrote, I want to talk about the need for self-importance and the fear of being insignificant. Can I face that fear head on and stop pretending to be more important than everybody else? Why is there this need to stand out? To what end, self-importance, the star of the class? Why do I even wish to be a star? Maybe because I am not a star. And I'm afraid others will not love me, so I must pretend to be a star, and maybe they'll love me. Do I really think I'm a star over everyone else? What would I be if I dropped the struggle to be a star? Insignificant, unlovable, dispensable, worthless, or free to be here in the present moment like a roadrunner? So the story goes on. My shining awareness on this attachment to being special, to wanting to stand out and be approved of. But there was a significant turning point at the end of this lesson, which to this day makes me wonder, did Ruth plan this out? I'll never know. Did she plan this out? Here's how the story ends. My teacher may have been reading me somehow, may have known I had the ability to take on this heavy lesson, or maybe she just let me cook up my own lessons. It is my final day. I'm leaving the retreat before the others. And just before I'm whisked away to catch a plane in Palm Springs, Ruth calls the Sangha's attention to the fact that I am now leaving. "We haven't yet honored the earnest effort of our filmmaker," she says, looking directly at me with a slight smile. "Honor her for her dedication and her fine work." She begins to applaud loudly and slowly, and the whole group joins in, enthusiastically applauding me. And when they finish, Ruth continues her applause as if she's calling for an encore. Slow, distinct clap, clap, clap. By this time, I'm bowing my head, not crying, feeling like crying, my mind stunned as though I am being struck on the head with a stick. Each clap resounds in the emptiness of my very being. I'm receiving what I so desired, but now the applause itself does not mean much. What means something is my incredible good fortune of receiving this selfless teaching from my beloved teacher, her little dog, and the Roadrunner. And I just want to show a picture here of Ruth in her Kuan Yin pose. I mean, she didn't pose this. I came along with the camera and was able to capture that picture of her. I did a lot of black and whites of her. Probably her little dog is over here on the pillow. And then I wanted to share one more picture of Ruth. And it's not my picture. I want to applaud whoever did this beautiful creation. I wish I could tell who it was. I don't know. But this is a picture of Ruth closer to the end of her life in meditation. And next to it, a quote from Ruth: "The only way to deal with suffering is to be with it. Just allow it to be as it is, with a lot of softness. Be with your sadness, be with your joy." Ruth Denison, 1922 to 2015. I bow to my teacher. Oh, such good fortune. You know, it got to the point where sometimes going on retreat was too easy for me. I welcomed the arising of something, some conflict, some not feeling good feeling. And so when I go on retreat with Joel, I was especially excited when something did come up, something didn't feel good. Because I could sit in meditation for a long time, focused on the breath and so on. But all of this stuff needed to be churned up and brought into that light of awareness. By the way, I wrote here in my notes that this need, this neediness, sometimes we look to the past to say, well, there's where that started, or, because of the way I grew up. But I want to point out that my parents, when I was a child, my parents loved me and wanted me. So I grew up with the story my mother told that they had already 3 sons and she wanted a daughter, and she would keep having babies until she got her daughter. And I thought, whoa, how many, 10, 20 babies till you get your daughter? And then she got me. This is what she always told me. And she was happy and complete, And so I felt wanted. I wasn't a child that felt unwanted or that I needed, acceptance in the family. And my father always carried around my baby picture in his wallet and other little pictures of me, and expressed, love for me. I bring this up because the Needy Beggar and manifestations like that come from the story of I. And yeah, sure, sometimes there's traumas that happen, that do give us conditioning that we have to deal with. But even without these things, the jealousy and so on, arise from that story of I that can never be satisfied, that wants to keep the drama going. Otherwise it dissipates. It got to keep the tension, the drama going, the subplots and everything, like Joel pointed out in his book. And by the way, you might say, well, I don't I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have a needy beggar or a bagel. But the needy beggar can be hidden. And if you have the needy beggar and you can't recognize it, it leads to suffering, anxiety, self-doubt, and bitterness. Recognizing it, shining the light of awareness, in my experience, makes it dissipate. Ignoring it leads to suffering. It's going to come bubbling up in some way or the other. So here are 3 things to look for. If you might have a needy beggar in hiding. Number 1, you grumble that people take you for granted. Yeah, I do all this work, and what do I get for it? They just take me for granted. I'm somebody who likes to send birthday cards, and so the younger members of my family, I put money in the card and send it up, make sure it's there on time, and put stickers and everything. And there's times when they don't even acknowledge they received it. And so I grumble. Why do I do it? Why do I bother? So, is that really something about them, or is it something about me? So that's one thing to look for, grumbling over no one acknowledging your labor. And number 2, you notice jealousy. Just like the way I saw that calendar maker get all the applause, and then I wanted that applause too. What was I going to do to get it? So watch for that. So number 1 is notice if you're grumbling, people take you for granted. Number 2, you notice jealousy. Somebody else got a book published, and well, is it that good, or why isn't mine? Or you know what I'm saying? Can I see some nodding of heads? I'm talking to myself. Everybody? Okay. All right. And then number 3, finally, you notice yourself actually discarding approval. So somebody says thank you, and you just, okay, and then you want some more. Why doesn't that person over there thank me? I've taught classroom writing classes for many years, and sometimes I'd have a student who would come up after each class and say, "Thank you, Professor Caston, for this wonderful class." And I'd say, "You're welcome." And they'd say, "Well, these other people, this student's taught well. You come and you thank the teacher, right? Everybody else just files out of the room." But number 3 leads me to my recent arising of the needy beggar, which led me to choose this for my topic today. Because when I have to give a talk, I think, what's really relevant to me today that I feel I can authentically talk about and share something with you. And so this relates to the last talk I gave, the Sunday talk in June, and my topic was illness, injury, and insight. And I chose that topic because I'd been sick for 6 months, and I was regaining some energy, and I wanted to talk about this. It was relevant to me, and it turned out to be, in my opinion, a very good talk. A lot of sharing happened, and so I gave the talk. And at the end of it, I felt job well done. Just as a matter of fact, job well done, no self-doubt. But, now I have to get vulnerable with you, my friends, but I deeply desired to hear back from some of the audience about the talk. And in the past, I have received notes after I give a talk. People send me notes about it. zinayana@aol.com. I'm just trying to be. It became very comical, by the way. This was not a big suffering. This was really a comical play that happened. So I noticed a bit of grumbling. So I gave the talk. Usually when I'm done giving a talk, my energy is like kind of electrified, and I thought, no one cares. There's no messages coming. No one cares. Ha! You do all that work, and what do you get? Just this silly stuff, like bubbling up like that. And of course, I shine the light of awareness. The light of awareness, by the way, is never turned off. It's always there, shining away. So still, it was kind of just, here's the story of I, like a current underneath. It's like a tentacle comes up like this. Nobody cares, right? So just then, I received a note from somebody, sent me an email, just really enjoyed that talk, and thank you so much. And I said, yes, but where's the next note? I don't see another note coming, and just then another note comes. And this is so funny. It's like tossing it aside. Yeah, but where's the next note? So I'm running around the house. We're doing things here, and I'm thinking, they don't really appreciate. And what about Joel? I didn't get anything from Joel. Joel didn't like the talk, right? Just then I hear from Joel, and he says, bravo. And I toss it aside. And I'm laughing at myself. This is so ridiculous. I gave the talk. I felt, it was a good talk. People sent me notes. Everybody approved. Joel approved, And still, there was that needy beggar. Here she is. It kind of disappears on the screen. There she is. Okay. So I said to Nirija, should I talk to somebody about this needy beggar business? And Nirija said, well, you're a spiritual teacher. You know what's going on. You know what to do. And I said, oh yeah, that's right. I know what to do. And with that, I got out a piece of paper and my beautiful, colorful pens. And I drew this drawing. And just like within 5 minutes, I drew the needy beggar saying, please love me. Honk if you approve of me. And here's a cup for you to put your donations into. And with that, the needy beggar vanished. And I was totally liberated from it. So I thought, what a good topic for my next talk. And Nirija said, well, if you give that as your topic, won't that make people feel like they have to give you some notes, send you notes afterwards? And I said, well, don't worry, I'll tell them not to. And at the same time saying, yeah, keep them coming, keep them coming. So anyway, earlier I gave the story of Milarepa. And I gave that, Milarepa inviting the demons to tea. And I gave that because this story illustrates how we can't make these afflictions go away by the methods that we might try to get rid of them. Like you're driving down this road and there's the needy beggars on the side of the road and you just keep driving as fast as you can, get away from them, turn off and get away, right? Get away from that needy beggar. Instead, stop the car and talk to the needy beggar or invite the needy beggar to tea. It is only when the light of awareness shines fully upon the story that the story liberates. And this is my experience. Thank you, Joel. Thank you, Hillary. Thank you, everybody. Jude. Why are we, I wonder, am I stingy with love and approval? Why hold back? Why aren't we cheering all the time? It's like we're afraid to do it. It's like, oh, don't know if I should or not. But with that, I want to invite you all to share stories with us about this needy beggar and how it has arisen in your life at times. What's the story behind it? Because in telling these stories, I think we help illuminate it for each other. So I'm going to ask you to volunteer to speak up and give a story from the Needy Beggar. And I'd like to see some hands go up. Thank you, Marissa. Go right ahead.
Okay. So I think I had a really good hit of the Needy Beggar a couple of years ago, after I started showing my art. And I was being juried into shows, which in itself was a great honor. I might be like one of 30 pieces out of a couple hundred. And then I started winning awards. And that was when I really noticed the Needy Beggar. So I've gotten into the show, I've gotten a great award, I get into another show, I get another award. And then I get into a show and I don't get an award. And then I get rejected in a show. And it's like all of the other stuff, all of the great applause that I'd gotten was, just gone. It's like, I have been already, it's just like, so that's my short Needy Beggar story.
Yes, and in your case, I have sometimes wondered, and I've asked you, what is it going to take for you to admit or to accept that you are an artist? So interestingly enough, you can win awards, grants, and exhibitions, and all sorts of things, and still need to be told that you're an artist. Or
yes,
convinced in some way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that part of you cannot be satisfied. That story of I arising cannot be satisfied, no matter, win the Nobel Prize or whatever it is, win the award for being your genuine self, being the artist that you are, and still it continues, that story. Right? Seeking
yes.
approval. Good. Thank you for that. Thank you. Some more hands would be nice. Some more volunteers. Good. Wesley, is your hand up? Good. And Laura Betty? Good. Hi, Laura.
Hi. Thank you for this lovely talk.
Yeah.
On the Needy Beggar, I had grumbled a lot at work of never getting appreciated. I felt like I had done my best. And looking back, it's like, but I was doing it for not only for the job and for doing a good job, but also for being approved.
Yeah.
And I guess that's kind of like a form of pride. I think pride has always been kind of a mysterious word for me, that it was like in some gold plate about this is pride. But I'm thinking that was probably pride also, of wanting to be acknowledged. And then there's some things that just happen that are, they're like, I don't know, golden drops of sunshine or something. You see something that, you could help or do whatever. And you don't even think, oh, this would be good for me to do. You just do it. Like,
do it.
Maybe just like opening up the door for somebody or whatever. And there's no need for approval afterwards. There's just this kind of bubbling of happiness that kind of happens. It goes away and you go on. And there's no need for like, oh yeah, you did a good job or anything. So it's kind of interesting.
That is. It's a beautiful, spontaneous, compassionate gesture. There's someone struggling with the door, I help with the door. I don't need to be even noticed. Sometimes you reach out and just help, and they don't even see who it was, and you're not needing that. And you do have a welling up of a good feeling, which is your natural feeling, your natural love, and wholeness comes up.
Yeah.
And it's a very good insight that you have about pride, because we have to, people use the word pride in a lot of ways, right now, gay pride and everything, which is a good thing that they're saying, we're saying, but pride itself, in the spiritual sense, a spiritual practitioner finds the affliction of pride and what arises out of that. So that's great insight you had about that.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Great talk. Thank you for being so vulnerable.
Good. And I saw Wesley's hand.
Yeah.
Are you there? Hi.
Yeah. Um, by the way, I love you.
Oh, I love you too, Wesley. I
Um,
I will just say I have, been around you for 28 years, but only in the last couple years have I gotten closer to you. And so it's never too late, my friends. And so happy to make a kindred spirit connection.
right. You better hurry up because who knows how long I'm going to last here.
Yeah.
I think just as a side note, I think there's such a thing as sort of reverse,
Uh-huh.
Needy Beggar in reverse, where I'm in a group or a conversation and I don't want to be noticed.
Yeah.
I don't know what I would say to add to the conversation, or I'm confused about it, or I don't care about it, or
Mhm.
whatever. But I'm hiding out there. I'm still
Mhm.
there. I have my
Mhm.
glass of tea in my hand.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
then, yeah,
I know what you mean. Yeah, the reverse of the needy beggar. Now we're still talking about affliction, not liberation.
mhm,
So sometimes we might be in a situation where, we're with a group, there's a conversation happening, and I said, well, thinking in my mind, well, no, I don't have anything to say here. I don't really want to be vulnerable. They probably don't want to hear me. Just notice what thoughts are coming up. They don't need to hear what I have to say. They seem to be happy. But what that manifestation might be saying or trying to tell you is you don't need any connection. You're happy being a loner, all alone in your suffering. So it really takes some investigation into that to unravel, am I free or am I actually suffering in this story that I'm not part of the group, they don't need me?
mhm.
Does that sound like what you're talking about or
Yeah, maybe.
maybe?
Sure.
Yeah. But I mean, there's plenty of times you might just be listening to a group and you're just satisfied. You're not, no need, you're just enjoying and satisfied. And so I would think that would be an example of being free. But if there's this discomfort, I'm not okay feeling, then we're talking about the story of I.
Well, then the other thing I wanted to mention was often Sherry will have one of our friends over to kind of talk on the porch in the fresh air. It's really one of her friends, and I'm just sort of hanging on. And I I don't understand part of this conversation. They move pretty fast and furious, but once in a while I'll see an opportunity and I'll throw in a little joke about what's going on. And sometimes it goes over well, people really laugh, and other times maybe it's a muted acknowledgement.
Yeah.
And I am bidding for attention,
Uh-huh.
but the answer for me, what I get is that is not to stop doing that, but to see it in the larger context of awareness or
Mhm.
spaciousness,
Absolutely.
so that it can arise out of that rather than out of some egoic need to demonstrate, being a wise guy.
Yeah. And that egoic need, I mean, when we know what that is, and the light shines upon it, there's no problem. Then, oh, I see it arising. There it arises, there it goes. So then, no problem. It may continue to come back, keep knocking on your door, let me in, and you see what that is. It's no problem. But yeah, sometimes when you were talking about telling a joke and they're not really responding to you, made me think of Mike Craven. Is Mike still here? Because Mike would often tell a joke, and I think was he being facetious or was that supposed to be funny? I couldn't really tell. I didn't know how to react, and so I was going into this whole thing like maybe it's me. I don't get what's going on. So it's interesting, our minds, go into this whole conversation, doubting ourselves or wondering if maybe I'm not okay. Yeah.
Well, what impresses me right here is that there seems to be a basic spiritual principle that you overcome evil with good, or you overcome what you don't want by loving it, by the way the monk did with the demons coming in. You don't overcome it by rejecting it or trying to reject it or throw it away. It's an inclusive love that that wins.
Yes, and we have to be careful that when we're loving it, that we're not actually coming from a place of pride, like I'm going to love myself. We can get into some mind games about that actually cause more suffering. Like, I love this, but no one else does, or something like that. So yes, to invite it in, to take it in, and to recognize it. It's manifestation, and the reason I teach the writing workshops using fiction as a tool is because I love fiction. I love the manifestations of fiction. So when I look at the story of I and all its arising, wow, it's a miracle. Look at that. Beautiful play going on here. And I don't need to reject or hate or try to get rid of any of that. As long as you recognize that, you can even enjoy that play. Just as like when you go to sleep at night and you have a dream, you might enjoy the dream, or maybe not. Maybe it's scary. Even that can be entertaining in a way. Thank you, Wesley.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the vulnerability. I did see another hand a minute ago. Barb Dewey, yeah. Hi, Barb. And then Cheryl right next to, yeah. So go Barb and then Cheryl.
What I noticed when you asked what we liked about ourselves, we kind of like to show off, but what I like to think of myself as being kind of quick-witted. And when interactions with my husband, sometimes I say something that I think is pretty amusing. And it's like, it goes, and I notice myself kind of getting tight and of course, I don't see it as my failure. I see it as his failure.
Yes.
He doesn't get me,
Right.
And I'm like all kind of, what's going on?
Yeah.
Well, as I notice this over time, finally I've gotten to the point where I can catch myself just at the moment, see what it is I'm about to do.
Excellent.
And why
Excellent.
I'm about to do it. And it just dissipates.
Yes.
It gets funny.
Yes, it becomes a comedy, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. So it was a good learning process for me.
Wonderful.
That only took, we've been married 30 years. So it shows you.
And you're a longtime practitioner.
Yeah.
30 years. Yeah.
Really. And it still took me a long time, which I guess just illustrates how much we doubt ourselves and are hard on ourselves completely unnecessarily.
Yeah. And this feeling of, he doesn't get me, or he doesn't get my humor, or nobody gets me, or I do all this art, or I do this right, nobody gets me, I need to reach out around the world and find somebody who gets me, because we're not getting our true self, during, like, we're identifying with that story that can never be got. It's not going to get got, or if it gets got, it's like gone. It's like ephemeral. It moves on real quick, impermanent.
Right.
So that need to be got. You understand what we're talking about, everybody else? I need to be got. You know, if you don't get me, I'm going to live and die. Nobody ever got me. Isn't that funny when you think about it? I need to be
Yeah.
got. But I did the same with Nirja, you know. Does she really get how funny I am sometimes? Does she get the quality of my writing or, you know, something silly along this?
Right.
Sorry
Yeah.
about that, Nirja. Thank you, Barb.
You're welcome.
And Cheryl. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi.
Greetings. Hi.
Um, Hi. Thank you so much for your message today. It
You're welcome.
has come at the perfect time as the season do. And,
Wonderful.
I've been really suffering with the need for approval
Mhm.
and the fear of disapproval.
Mhm.
I have a job that I do working with kids kind of after school.
Yeah.
And I've felt for a long time that I need to quit.
Uh-huh.
And I'm having a hard time doing it because I'm going to let somebody down.
Ah.
I'm good at it. I receive feedback for it. Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay.
All is well.
I receive good feedback. Yeah, I receive good feedback for it, and so my needy beggar is definitely holding a sign that says "Approve of me."
Yes.
And I love that you said that needing this to quench my self-doubt.
Mhm.
So that was a really interesting point that I'm going to think more about. But the idea that true nature doesn't need love and approval also resonates.
Yeah.
And I think I'm struggling now with what is true nature and what is this kind of worldly message that you need to stop and take care of yourself, and sort of a self-care thing. And just, yeah, I'm still
Yeah.
kind of struggling to make sense of that.
Yeah, and that's what spiritual practitioners investigate. What is this true nature and what is this story of I? Are they two separate things, and how can I see this in life? How can I recognize? And so, you know, typically spiritual teachers don't say, well, it's this, it's that. You know, they say, go, as Joel says, you find out, you know, UFO, you find out. And you go and you do the practices and you begin to see for yourself. And in that way, you're not like just taking it on somebody else's word or joining a cult or something. You're the one investigating and finding out what is this true nature, and who am I? You know, this I that I'm saying here. Who is that? But this particular situation you're talking about on the job, you know, when you have a job and you get the good reviews and they're giving you the approval, it is hard to move on because you think, I may not ever get approved of again. If I go somewhere else, I mean, this is safe here because they like me, I'm being approved of. But, you know, inside you're saying, well, I'm being called to do more or elsewhere. I feel the calling, and then there's the conflict. Why don't I stay with what's comfortable? I'm getting my needs fulfilled, but you know, over here, this. But if I go with this, it's the unknown, and there may be no approval. You know, and so am I willing to go there and not get any approval? Am I actually, as borrowing this from Byron Katie, by the way, I highly recommend Byron Katie's work. She wrote a book called I Need Your Love. Is it true? I need your approval. Is that true that I really need anybody's approval? Like, can I just live life without having to do that? But anyway, she gets people to look at a statement like that and say, I welcome being rejected. I look forward to the next time I am not approved of. I look forward to it. because then you get to, if you can, open the gate. I'm willing for all of it, the whole life, instead of having the gates closed. I'm willing to be rejected. I'm willing to fail, or whatever it is. And so you can look closely at this situation, and I think, I don't really know you, Cheryl, but I have this sense that you know what you need to do, and you will be led, you'll be guided by that.
Thank you.
But, with the light of awareness, as you cultivate the attention to awareness and shift the identity away from the story of I, it has the opportunity to be released, to be liberated. So it for some folks on the spiritual path, it may take some time to actually be able to stand in the light with it.
Thanks, Mary.
Yes.
Can I jump in here, Mary Song, for a
Oh,
moment?
please, Joel.
Cheryl,
Yes.
I missed why it is you feel you have to leave your job.
Yeah. I think it's about needing time, overextending myself. It's a second job after school, and I think I've always overscheduled myself, and I'm seeing that having more balance to be instead of to do is really important. So I'm seeking more time to be instead of to do.
Right. So let me, do you know the story of the Buddha? The Buddha? The story about how he how he left his home? So in the story of the Buddha, he grew up in this palace, the son of a king, a ruler. But when he saw the suffering, he decided he had to go find the inner wisdom for himself. That was his calling. That's what he had to do. And he had to leave and abandon his job. Because his job was, it was an inherited job. His job was to go on and become the ruler of this kingdom. And so he did. He leaves abandons his job to follow this calling, to not be overextended, have more time to go inward to discover his true nature, which he finally does. And in fact, the temptation, as the story goes, that Mara, the god of delusion, the last thing that Mara tries to stop him from becoming enlightened is he sees him sitting under the Bodhi tree, and he says, "You're sitting here contemplating your navel under the Bodhi tree, and you're a prince. You should be back in the palace. You've got a job to do," and this and that. And the Buddha reaches out and touches the earth to bear witness that everybody has the right to discover their true nature above everything else. So you're just walking the Buddha's footsteps in a little way, but this is the message. I mean, this is one of the teachings, the classic teachings of a spiritual path. So my suggestion is follow your inner calling, follow what you're called to do. And this business about being responsible and people, there may be, I don't know you, but there may be a little bit of self-centered pride in that, where it's well, people can't get along without me, and what will they do? How will they survive? And you can recognize that and let that go. They're grown-up people. They maybe can get along without you. We all have this that how is the world going to get along without me? Well, it's been doing pretty good for how many thousands of years, and probably is going to do okay if I leave this job. So anyway, remember the story of the Buddha, though, because that's the point of these stories. They're not just, they are great stories from a Mary Song's, the way Mary Song would talk about, but they also, as Mary Song tries to use them as teachings. Sometimes a story contains a more direct, full teaching than you can get in any kind of sermon or, talk or something. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out. And I do since we're giving credit where credit is due, I want to point out that UFO, you find out, is not my teaching. It's Wesley's teaching.
Wesley.
And I stole it from Wesley. So
Wesley.
let's applaud Wesley.
Yay. I wish we could, have the sound of applause on Zoom. I did download an applause track, but I haven't brought it up here on the screen to use it. But thank you for that, Wesley.
I'm signing off.
Thank you for that, Joel. I always love it when you add something to the talk.
Together.
Yes. Thank you, Cheryl. And Barbara Goldberg.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Mary Song. One of my many needs, one of them that comes up really quickly is just being seen.
Yes.
Maybe that's probably number one. And the other day, I was listening to Amanpour Company, which is a news outlet at the end of the day, and they had an interview with a young man. Maybe he was in his mid-20s or so. Anyway, they were talking about active shooters. And I'm bringing that out because it does come back to me again. But he talked about his early life, how horrendous it was, how brutal it was. And as he grew up, he became more brutal himself and found more and more likeness with people that were in the same condition. And it was so he was so detailed and so poised in his able to talk about it. And so she said to him, well, we have all these solutions. We have all these, what can we do? We could do this and we can do that. And we're fighting over it and we don't know. And surely you can help us with this. And he said, I just want to be seen. And if somebody sees me, that's enough.
Yeah.
And if you do that with people who are like me, who I work with, because he became a person who worked with people to help them be seen. That is his job now. And he passed through. He said, I know that if I had had a gun in my hand at certain times in my life, I would have used it. He said, well, would it have helped if it was not a semi-automatic or a this or a that, or because you were old enough or not? And he said, no, that was not it. That's your thinking, but that's not it for what I needed. I just needed to be seen, to say something, just to say something to me. And so I bring that up. I don't know why I brought that up, except that it's been on my mind a lot.
It's a wonderful illustration.
I hope so, because it isn't, he's not one of us, but he is one of us. And when Joel talked about, do you know the story of the Buddha? This guy's face flashed right in front of me, because he is the Buddha. The way he talked about life as he has learned it, and as he has moved through it and tried to understand what he needed to do, and what he does now as work, made me so, I cried sitting here by myself, crying and listening to him. And I just wanted to share that story with you and hope that you could respond.
Yes, that's a wonderful story. And, a beautiful service that any of us can do is to give compassionate attention. Sometimes we're all involved in our own, what we need, but to be totally present with someone and to give compassionate attention. As a classroom teacher at a community college, in every class, I just spontaneously and naturally gave compassionate attention. And it's sad because so many people I could tell had never had someone give them compassionate attention. And I would see them just blossom, just like, let me write something good for this, let me write. And then they would come alive. And, it just seemed that so many people are deprived in our society. I can't speak for others, but I will say that this need to be seen. The only time that will be ever satisfied is when we see ourselves. So when you are truly seen, you're actually seeing yourself. It's not going to come from the outside. I mean, coming from the outside is therapeutic, in the relative way. But as spiritual practitioners, that need to be seen and heard. Only when we see and hear ourselves will there be a dissipation of that suffering or anxiety. That has been my experience.
Well, I thank you for that. I guess I just go back to a couple of moments in my life when I have been perhaps like this young person who was being interviewed. I know everyone is like that. We all have our moments of desperation, or you just can't go any further. That's it. And I was standing on the curb, and I was about to step off the curb, and somebody smiled at me from across the street. And I can't tell you how happy that made me. And it was, I don't know that that's I think underneath all that I'm saying is what you said. That is that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
You have to see yourself. But somehow in the middle, you need steps along the way to get, or maybe you don't. Maybe it's just maybe that moment where something is punctured, something is totally broken up and broken open, and it can't be.
Oh, beautiful.
It doesn't seem as if it's by me. It has to be some way else. And maybe it's from a cat, or maybe it's from a dog, but it's just that moment. And I'm curious about that moment, because
in that moment, you become all that you see. All those other people, oh, that's me. And the blackbird on the street, oh, that's me. I don't know if you've ever had that experience, but oh, the rain falling, that's me.
And that young boy, that was me.
That's me.
I wouldn't be crying if I hadn't felt that.
And the walls come down of separation. And then, I said true nature was wholeness, and in our story of I, we have separation, separation everywhere. All of us separated out. And by the way, I grew up with a brother who was mentally handicapped, 3 brothers, one mentally handicapped. And you could tell that he needed love and attention, and that people would often, turn away from him, or, the kids would make fun of him, and he was hurt. And, and so being in that family, I think, we're always trying to make him feel better, give him loving attention, give him presents, take him somewhere, and so on. And that was part of our play, that was the story. And someone recently asked me, what made you such a compassionate person? And I brought that up. I said, I grew up in a family where there was someone who was brain damaged, but who evoked that loving response, and so I always thought of him as a teacher, like this. And it was hard, it was sad and everything, but on the other hand, what a good story for unfolding compassion and love. And so I do see what you're saying, and appreciate your comments, Barbara.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You as well.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to call on, let's see, where are you, Robin? Robin, hi. I didn't see your hand go up, but I think you told me you did have a story you'd like to tell. Is that true?
Yes, I was actually just reaching to raise my hand. So.
Oh, good.
And the story I was thinking of actually changed to something else I realize is better to share.
Oh,
so,
okay.
So I realized that my mother and father-in-law have been my Ruth Dennisons to me, like your
Nice.
story. Um, they have had a way of showering love and affection on their granddaughter, but when it comes to me or their own son, it's like it skips a generation. And so where I have had my hungry beggar come out, for example, has been like in performance situations. My husband and I used to perform a lot, and so we would do these shows and they would come to our shows and then they wouldn't say anything afterwards, but they would always come. And so I found myself feeling so needy for them to say something good about it afterwards. Like it was my own, self-doubt and about whether I was good enough or not, and looking to them, I guess, as parental figures. And so that has happened for years. And it's been really good as a teaching to point out to me just how much I've wanted that, and to look at my own suffering around that, and to kind of realize like, I'm probably never going to get it from them. And so I've kind of slowly detached more and more from needing that from them. Like it's so much easier now because I don't expect it really. But there was one quintessential moment too when I had discovered the longing to learn to play the accordion. And I had been talking about it. We had looked into buying an accordion, and my father-in-law had told us repeatedly, oh, don't buy an accordion. So like kind of implying like you've got an accordion coming your way. And so one year at Christmas, the accordion did come along, but they gave it to their granddaughter who had never expressed any interest at all in playing the accordion. And so that was like the big moment, like for me to just see all of that. Look at me,
Wonderful.
love me, show me that you love me by giving me this accordion, see me, all of that. And so that took some time to get through, but no, I'm really okay with it. We kept the accordion. She never plays it. I enjoy it a lot. And it's okay. And, every now and then I'll give them updates that it's going well, and I'll play something for them, and they don't say anything. But they still want to hear it. Like they still seem to want to be in an audience to hear it. So anyway, it just reminded me of that when you're talking about the Ruth Dennison story, just that look at me, appreciate me, show me that I'm important. And I'm kind of glad in a way that they've been so cold because it's shown me that part of me. Yeah.
Good. That's the spiritual practitioner. You're welcoming that discomfort of not being appreciated. I welcome the lack of approval. I welcome that because then I have an opportunity to really look at it and investigate. But I will say that this whole situation of performance, like you get up, you sing a song, you play the guitar, you act in a play, you give a talk or whatever it is, the performance is not complete without the audience. So the performer and the audience, and it sets us up, we want the back and forth, like, the applause at the end. And then we really don't know, as in the case of the folks you're talking about, we don't know what's in their mind. They might think, oh, Robin is so good. She doesn't need to hear how good she is. She's just so beautiful and wonderful, and we love her music. You don't know. They might be thinking that.
Yeah.
And you can't tell. I mean, you could confront them, but that might not be in the cards. But yeah, it's a beautiful opportunity to look and see. And
well, and it's had me kind of get more curious. Like once I can get out of my hurt feelings about not being acknowledged or whatever, just really kind of scratch my head and kind of think, that's just odd. I mean, they're not kind of responding in the typical way one would think, and had me kind of just wonder, I wonder what's going on in their heads, but not really fault them for it. Just kind of
and let it be okay. Whatever it is going on. A good example for me is, a friend of mine, I said, I'm giving the talk tomorrow. I noticed that person's not here. And then I think, well, they don't want to hear talk by me. They don't, they're not going to bother to tune in, but what's going on? We don't know. And so it's a place, it's that slate, blank slate, where the story of I can come and write a story on it to make you feel bad or uncomfortable. But we don't know. So it's much better to cultivate don't know mind. I just don't know, but I will carry on being a servant, to true nature and to awakening.
Absolutely. And just to add one more thing, I think one thing that's helped me a lot is the mantra, tell the good story. Like if it's all a story anyway, and we can tell whatever story we want, to catch myself telling the bad story and think, well, what would the good story be? Even if that's not true either, it does make me feel better.
Yeah, but consider the no story.
Yes, and no story too. Right.
Because we can take the bad stories and try to reprogram and make it some good stories, but then it's still a story. And so partly it doesn't occur to us that we can live a life and have no story that's controlling what we say and do. So to be in don't know mind, I don't know, and to be free of story, while at the same time appreciating the story. That stories arise.
Right. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you, Robin.
You too.
Yeah. Great. Did we have one more? We have about 3 minutes left, so we have one last. Yeah, Mike. Hi, Mike. Did you hear me say that about your jokes?
Well, yes, I think
I couldn't tell sometimes.
You took my name in vain, and I need to defend myself. No,
not in vain at all.
No, I actually want to talk about that a little because I've wondered about that quote, sense of humor from somebody's point of view.
Yeah.
And I have, it's conditioned. I'm just saying things I think are funny and silly, but I think as a kid, it was a way to get attention and sometimes deflective. If you're in an awkward situation, tell a joke and it lets it go. Right now, I believe, it just comes out, and I don't really think it's about me. It's like, if it makes somebody else happy, fine. But considering Sheila's reaction, my sister, my daughters, I've come to also say,
groan.
Yeah, a groan is as good as a laugh. But more seriously about getting attention, I grew up in a very loving household. I was fine, no problems, but I always felt unappreciated, let's say a poor self-image. I don't know why. And in my late teenage years, early 20s, I became a quote artist, not professionally, but on the side. And I found that I got a great deal of pride and pleasure that people would finally acknowledge me, saying, oh, that's a wonderful piece. And I'd have one-man shows and I'd sell and all this. And it's a strange trajectory because not having had much of a self-image, it did a lot to bolster my self-image. And then I go on this damn spiritual path where they say, get rid of ego. So I was glad that I went to the effort to build one. And since I've been trying to let it soften, and I find now that with artwork, I'm a little embarrassed if somebody compliments me. And I don't believe it's false modesty, but I just want them to enjoy it if they do. And it doesn't matter. I really am as honestly as I can be. I'm trying to get to that point. But I also realize that people who have a bad self-image can't let their ego go because they haven't built it up to where they have to dissolve that. The falsity of a poor self-image would be nice if that could dissipate, but it's easier if you've been somewhat egotistical in your life and then try to let it go. Anyway, I didn't want to carry this too far beyond 1 o'clock. Just a quick comment.
But I know I really appreciate those comments. That is so relevant to what we're talking about here. And You know, Mike, I've always appreciated your humor. I've known you for, 25 or more years, and have always appreciated your humor in retreats and practitioners groups at the center and so on. But
That's
sometimes I didn't know if you meant it to be funny. Like your delivery, I thought, oh, well, I don't know if I'm supposed to laugh or not. And then I think maybe something's wrong with me. I don't. So, but no, I've always appreciated it.
Thanks for the big ego boost. No. And
Just
anyway,
let it flow through.
but there's a case where it's really, I don't want it to be about me, but if it brings a little snicker, helps somebody feel a little happy, it's my way of service.
Yeah.
So because you're
Yeah.
Can I just
Sure.
I just wanted to thank Robin for expressing something that gave me some insight about my sister, who is a performing person. She acts, she sings, she's extraordinarily talented, and she, as a child, was very shy. And the insight is, I wonder if I'm giving her enough appreciation for her great talents. So that was great. Thank you.
Yeah, we might look at, am I hoarding up my approval and good feelings for others? Do I hoard it up because maybe I'm afraid to open up and give love and applause to someone else for whatever reason? But a while back I gave a talk on coming out of hoarding, which also had to do with hoarding our response to others. In fact, Joel said he was going to come out of his hoarding up approval and tell me that I did a good job on that talk, which was pretty relevant. But anyway, thank you for that, Mike and Sheila both. And
thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming in today from afar and up close too, and appreciate you so much. It's a labor of love. You don't have to send me any love notes, but if you want to, zinayana@aol.com, it just comically, okay, just comically, I won't suffer. And so with that, it's 1:02. We'll bring the meeting to a close. Joel, thank you so much. And you have David down there bottom, thank you, and Wesley, everybody. Let's do a synchronized bow, just a little bit slowing it down and then coming together. And meeting, you notice the two hands meeting, how nice that feels. Well, maybe not, because I have a little pain in my hands, but generally come together feels good, and then bowing to each other. Thank you so much for this lovely 2 hours. And with that, farewell.